Good day once again from the International Space Station Flight Control Room at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Thanks for joining us for our coverage of the return home of 3 of the crew members of the International Space Station. At this hour, the Expedition 43 crew, Terry Virts, the off-going Expedition 43 commander, Soyuz commander Anton Shkaplerov, and European Space Agency flight engineer Samantha Cristoforetti are suited up and buttoned up inside the descent module of the Soyuz TMA-15M spacecraft, awaiting the deorbit burn less than 21 minutes from now that will begin the final leg of their journey back to Earth and a completion of 199 days in space. Here in the flight control room at the Johnson Space Center, the Orbit 1 team has been on console throughout the course of the overnight hours, overseeing the crew's farewell and hatch closure activities, as well as the undocking of the Soyuz. We'll recap all of that in a moment. On console at this hour here in the flight control room, in the dark jacket, is the flight director for this team, Zeb Scoville. He is joined to his right by a pair of veteran expedition astronauts, Joe Acaba and actually Mark Bowman, a Soyuz systems expert for the astronaut office, is on console with Acaba. And on the far right of your screen is Amit Kshatriya, flight director, who is joining Scoville for today's entry and landing of the Expedition 43 crew. Across the Atlantic Ocean at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow, the Russian flight control team is monitoring all of the Soyuz systems. They are in charge of this operation to bring home Virts, Shkaplerov, and Cristoforetti. The undocking of the Soyuz, as we mentioned a moment ago, is complete. The Soyuz has moved to a position some 12 kilometers away from the International Space Station, and the stage is set for the deorbit burn less than 20 minutes from now that will begin the road home for the trio in the descent module of their Soyuz spacecraft. And again, on board the Soyuz, strapped into their respective seats, clad in their Sokol launch and entry suits, Terry Virts, who is in the right seat of the Soyuz TMA-15M spacecraft as the board engineer number 2. Anton Shkaplerov in the center seat as Soyuz commander. Samantha Cristoforetti to the left of Shkaplerov in the descent module. She is board engineer number 1 for this entry and landing of this trio that spent 199 days in space, more than 3,100 orbits of the Earth. They traveled 84 of last year. When they touch down on the steppe of Kazakhstan just over an hour from now, Terry Virts will have logged a total of 212 days in space on his 2 flights. Anton Shkaplerov will have logged 364 days in space on his 2 flights. And, of course, Cristoforetti now. Terry Virts will have logged a total of 212 days in space on his 2 flights. Anton Shkaplerov will have logged 364 days in space on his 2 flights. And, of course, Cristoforetti on this, her first flight into space, 199 days. Virts, Shkaplerov, and Cristoforetti were joined in the passageway between the Rosviet module and the hatchway to their Soyuz spacecraft for final farewells and the hatch closure. The hatchway to their Soyuz spacecraft for final farewells and the hatch closure, which marked the beginning there. The Soyuz commander, Terry Virts, and Samantha Cristoforetti, they had an opportunity to say goodbye to one another one final time, a final opportunity for picture taking, and they embraced one another, as you'll see here in a moment, as they prepared to move into their Soyuz vehicle, closing the hatch, conducting leak checks and communications checks with the Russian flight control team in Korolyov before donning their Sokol launch and entry suits for the undocking that took place a bit later. As you see here, Shkaplerov, new commander of the Expedition 44 increment on the International Space Station, and Mikhail Kornienko. On the left side of your screen, Scott Kelly, who along with Kornienko, a quarter of the way through their year-long mission on the International Space Station. There you see Christopher Reddy bidding her crewmates a farewell before moving into the Soyuz spacecraft. The Soyuz was activated for its departure from the International Space Station in the V shape, ready to support entry and landing. Terry Virts served as the Expedition 43 commander on the International Space Station. He handed over command of the station. Terry Virts served as the Expedition 43 commander on the International Space Station. He handed over command of the station to Gennady Padalka during a change of command ceremony yesterday. Padalka becoming the first 4 time members in this replay from activities that took place just after 2 a.m. Central Time this morning, waving farewell one more time before the hatch swung shut on the Soyuz spacecraft, followed about a minute later by the hatch closing on the Rosviet module side, the International Space Station side of the docking interface. As you watch the final moments of this replay of the farewells and hatch closure that took place a few hours ago, the International Space Station currently flying over the eastern Pacific Ocean, moving from northwest to southeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator, at an altitude of just over 250 statute miles. As is customary for any hatch closure activity, you see Shkaplerov and Padalka wiping down the circumference of the hatchway to ensure that no foreign object debris would be present that would inhibit a good leak check. All of that went by the book. The leak checks were confirmed. An airtight seal was confirmed prior to the undocking of the Soyuz from the International Space Station. And as you see, that hatch swung shut at 2:04 a.m. Central Time, followed a minute later by Padalka closing his side of the docking interface between the Soyuz and the Rosviet module of the International Space Station.
It might have been like maybe created a bubble close to the or something like that, because it went up unusually fast, and it's not. Now it's more normal. Really slow.
Медленно засвет. Так, салаты.
Asтрey, Moscow. Go ahead.
Ответил. Антон, на формате наблюдаете буквы З и К? Калибровка прошла?
Anton, do you see the letters Z и K on the format of the calibration of accelerometer? Yes, we see those letters, Moscow. Okay, copy, Anton. Thank you.
With the hatch closure activity complete, the stage was set for the undocking of the Soyuz from the Rosviet module. As you see here in this replay, the undocking occurring right on time at 5:20 a.m. Central Time, 6:20 a.m. Eastern Time, as the spacecraft passed 252 statute miles over southern Mongolia. Springs on either side of the docking interface pushed off against one another, enabling the Soyuz to begin its departure, backing away from Rosviet. That set the stage for a pair of separation burns of thrusters on the Soyuz spacecraft that wound up placing the Soyuz with an opening rate that resulted in the Soyuz moving to a distance of some 12 kilometers away from the International Space Station, where it is at this time just 11 minutes away from the deorbit burn that will begin the ride home for the crew members on board the descent module, which is the center section that you see on the left side of your screen. The upper section is the orbital module, where the docking probe and the avionics for the Soyuz spacecraft are located. These three sections of the Soyuz pyrotechnically separate just before the Soyuz enters the Earth's plasma buildup around the spacecraft as it moves through the much thicker regions of the Earth's atmosphere. Once again, that occurred with the undocking at 5:20 a.m. Central Time. After the separation burns were complete, the Soyuz crew, Vert's former crewmates on board the station, Scott Kelly in particular, and Gennady Padalka, as they had a final exchange of farewells and best wishes to one another as the Soyuz began to fade from view from the remaining crew members on board the International Space Station. Let's listen to that audio clip. Best wishes to one another as the Soyuz began to fade from view from the remaining crew members on board the International Space Station. Let's listen to that audio clip.
Fast departure, and you could see that posigrade burn, the final burn.
Did you see it from the window?
Oh yeah, I saw the roll, my degree, posigrade. We got good pictures, Terry, and the IMAX camera is now happy. It's got a crew quarters all its own. Hopefully it's in the starboard crew quarters. Swear it's sleeping now. Fair winds and following seas, guys. It was a real pleasure spending time up here with you. And good luck on your landing.
Thanks, Scott. I miss you guys already.
Seriously, thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
I had a great time.
Good luck on your landing.
Thanks, Scott. I miss you guys already.
Seriously, thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
I had a great time.
Да. Счастливости, Антон.
Good luck to you, Anton.
Samantha, ты осталась лидер здесь.
Samantha, you speaking. Well, it's for you, Gennady. I left it for you if you start feeling cold, you know. All right. Well, he can use it as a T-shirt, maybe.
Gennady Ivanovich, командир, до скорого на земле.
Gennady, commander, see you on the ground.
Once again, that was an audio replay of an exchange between the departing Soyuz crew and Scott Kelly and Gennady Padalka on board the International Space Station. Once again, that was an audio replay of an exchange between the departing Soyuz crew and Scott Kelly and Gennady Padalka on board the International Space Station. Kelly and on board the station along with Padalka, who on June 28th will break the all-time record for most days in space by a human being, 803 days currently held by Sergei Krikalev. Padalka will surpass that mark on June 28th. He will remain on board the station until September 11th. Kelly and Kornienko will remain on board the complex until next March, completing their year in space. So the stage is set for the deorbit burn coming up in about 6 minutes and 45 seconds. This will be a 4-minute, 40-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz main engine to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit for its return into the Earth's atmosphere. Once the deorbit burn is complete, the three modules, the three sections of the Soyuz will separate at 8:18 a.m. Central Time. The descent module will be exposed to the heat of the re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Temperatures will build to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit around the Soyuz descent module before the command is issued to open up the parachutes at 8:29 a.m. Central Time this morning. Two pilot parachutes are first deployed, the second of which extracts a drogue chute. The drogue chute then will be released, and the main parachute is deployed, covering an area of about 1,000 meters, slowing the Soyuz to a descent rate of 7.2 meters per second before soft landing engines will fire just a moment or two before touchdown. The landing is scheduled at 8:43 and 43 seconds a.m. Central Time at a point about 92 statute miles to the southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan, where a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters populated by the search and recovery forces and NASA and European Space Agency teams joining their Russian counterparts are now revving up the rotors on those helicopters, ready to take off for about a 40-minute helicopter ride to the landing site, where they will form in a circular racetrack pattern around the landing zone prior to the touchdown of the Soyuz in that landing site that is scheduled to occur at 8:43 a.m. Central Time, which will be 7:43 p.m. in Kazakhstan, just 1 hour and 34 minutes before sunset.
I confirm OSK.
Soyuz Commander Anton Shkaplerov reviewing a few final procedural activities with the flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. You're looking at that large control center from a camera mounted on the balcony overlooking the control center in Korolyov. Once again, this deorbit burn will be 4 minutes, 40 seconds in duration. You'll be hearing the flight control team telling Shkaplerov to keep them apprised, to keep talking throughout the deorbit burn, to provide status reports. And as is customary for a Soyuz entry back into the Earth's atmosphere, we do expect ratty or choppy communications with the Soyuz as it passes further and further away below the International Space Station and out of the range of relay from the space station itself. Communications and data from the Soyuz spacecraft will later be relayed through an Antonov fixed-wing aircraft that is flying in the vicinity of the landing zone, which operates as a flying relay station to provide voice and data back to the Russian flight controllers in Korolyov. Once the Soyuz touches down, the Russian Mi-8 helicopters with the search and recovery forces aboard will begin landing in sequential fashion. The first order of business will be to set up an inflatable medical tent near where the Soyuz will have touched down. That will be the place where the three crew members will be carried into in their comfortable chairs right outside of their spacecraft, where they'll spend a few minutes reacclimating themselves to a gravity environment for the first time in 199 days.
Anton, a reminder. Please report the time and the burn value. Copy, Moscow.
Once again, in the descent module, the center section of the Soyuz spacecraft, Anton Shkaplerov, the Soyuz commander, strapped in the center seat, flanked on his left by European Space Agency flight engineer Samantha Cristoforetti, and to his right, of the Soyuz spacecraft, Anton Shkaplerov, the Soyuz commander, strapped in the center seat, flanked on his left by European Space Agency flight engineer Samantha Cristoforetti, and to his right, the off-going Expedition 43 commander Terry Virts, the NASA veteran astronaut who is wrapping up his second flight into space, a total of 212 days for him.
1280, copy. See it through the window very clearly.
1 minute, 30 seconds until the initiation of the deorbit burn, the firing, the automated sequence firing of the Soyuz main engine. Reports from Kazakhstan. Reports from Kazakhstan. Reports from Kazakhstan indicate that there is a line of storms in the area of Karaganda, which is to the northeast of the landing site, but that conditions remain good at the landing site itself, with just inside 1 minute until the start of the deorbit burn.
Mode stabilization. And we have G3. Copy, Anton. We are getting ready for the thruster firing. Are you ready? Yes, I am. Moscow Astray, how copy? We copy you loud and clear. Moscow Astray, how copy? We copy you loud and clear. Moscow Astray, how copy? We copy you loud and clear, Anton. Copy, Moscow.
The Soyuz currently flying over the South Atlantic, just to the east of Argentina, as we stand.
Moscow Astray 1. We have SKD firing. We have G load 047.
The deorbit burn is now underway on time, beginning at 7:50.
10 meters, 0.46 is acceleration. Copy, Anton. 30 seconds, 0.46 is acceleration. 13 and 6, so we are at page 107. The pressure. Copy, Anton. 30 seconds, 0.46 is acceleration. 13 and 6, so we are at page 107. The pressure. 13 and 12 and 9, 13 and 3. 448 is the propellant, and the attitude.
Christopher Reddy, Soyuz Commander Anton Shkaplerov are reporting fuel consumption and manifold pressure readings back to the Russian flight controllers in Korolyov.
12, 8, 13 and 3 is the pressure on nozzles, and the attitude is nominal. Copy, Anton.
Minute 30.
1 minute 30. 0.45 is acceleration, 41 meter, attitude is nominal. 12 and 9, 13 and 2, that's the pressure on the burners or nozzles. 30 and 7 is the propellant. 54 meters, 0.46 is acceleration. 13 and 8, 13 and 2 is the pressure.
Now midway through this 4-minute, 40-second deorbit burn, everything looking good.
.5 minutes, 69 meters. The attitude is nominal. 13, 9, 13, 2 is the pressure, and 16.5 is the propellant. 74 meters, 74.5 meters. The attitude is nominal. 12 and 13 and 3, 16 and 8 is the propellant. 3 minutes, 82.5 meters, attitude is nominal. The pressure, 13, 9, 13 and 3, 16 and 5 is the propellant. Okay, copy. Samantha and Anton. .5 minutes, 96 meters, 0.47, attitude is nominal. The pressure, 13 13 and 3, 16 and 8.
Less than a minute to go in the deorbit burn. Communications so far solid with the crew on the Soyuz TMA-15M spacecraft, beginning the journey home for a landing on the barren steppe of Kazakhstan.
4 minutes, 110 meters, 047 acceleration, 13 and 13 and 5 is the pressure, about 17 the oxidizer and propellant. 120 meters, now the attitude is nominal. 13 and 5 on the nozzles, about 17 is the oxidizer propellant. We are going to page 109. We have GK, we have cutoff command. Okay, copy. So L3 stable mode.
And here in the flight control room, the visiting vehicle officer, Heidi Paris, confirms the completion of the deorbit burn. Everything looked good. Virts, Shkaplerov, and Cristoforetti on the way home.
I have SKGS, interface flick check system. The pressure is dropping. Copy. Guys, congratulations from the station. Thank you, guys. 380 is a BO. Pressure, page 110. Copy.
At this point, the upper section of the Soyuz, the orbit to the flight control room, the depressurization of the orbital module designed to ensure a safe pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz that is coming up about 21 minutes from now. Module designed to ensure a safe pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz that is coming up about 21 minutes from now.
So the pressure is dropping 220. Copy.
In Kazakhstan, if you look at the map of the landing site, the Russian Mi-8 helicopters are staging out of Zhezkazgan, which is to the northwest of the landing site itself, and you see them to fly in those helicopters to Zhezkazgan yesterday. If you look at where the landing site is relative to Zhezkazgan, Arkelik, and Karaganda, the southern zone and the northern zone combined forms a sort of isosceles triangle. That's what the search and recovery forces use for both prime and backup landing opportunities. But today it is the prime opportunity that is the target for the Soyuz TMA-15M spacecraft as it begins a descend towards the upper reaches of the Earth's atmosphere. Entry interface, atmospheric entry, is scheduled at 8:21 a.m. Central Time this morning. That will be followed about a minute and a half later by the buildup of plasma and peak heating on the Soyuz spacecraft. Entry into the plasma shield will be repelled by the heat shield on the Soyuz spacecraft to make sure that temperatures around the spacecraft are at the proper temperatures. About a 5-minute entry into the plasma, repelled by the heat shield on the Soyuz spacecraft to make sure that temperatures around the spacecraft are at the proper temperatures. About a 5-minute entry into the plasma trail for the Soyuz spacecraft before entry guidance will begin as automatic computers on the Soyuz target the landing site in Kazakhstan. Again, about 92 statute miles. After the Soyuz has exited the so-called plasma field and begins to descend into the reach, 3 minutes after the main parachute has been opened on the Soyuz. That exposes the altimeter at the base of the Soyuz spacecraft to provide computational information to the onboard computers about the Soyuz's altitude and its distance on the Soyuz. That exposes the altimeter at the base of the Soyuz spacecraft to provide computational information to the onboard computers about the Soyuz's altitude and its distance from a touchdown back on Earth.
Ready for separation.
Да. Главный команды его touchdown. Перехожу на формат.
The money as expected. We do expect the communications to be somewhat intermittent, as is typically the case for a Soyuz entry, as it passes further and further away from antennas on the International Space Station itself. As mentioned a moment or two ago, away from antennas on the International Space Station itself. As mentioned a moment or two ago, they're away from antennas on the International Space Station itself. As mentioned a moment or two ago, the Soyuz will be establishing both voice and telemetry through a Antonov fixed-wing aircraft that is flying back to the flight control team in Korolyov as they watch the final phase of this landing operation, with touchdown expected just under 42 minutes from now. This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking at the Russian flight control room in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow, where Russian flight controllers are monitoring the data from the Soyuz TMA-15M spacecraft, the deorbit burn having been executed a few minutes ago, a 4-minute, 40-second firing of the braking rockets on the Soyuz to begin its entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. Everything is proceeding on track, and again, the loss of voice communications was expected, and again, as is typical for a Soyuz entry, intermittent and choppy communications will be prevalent over the course of the next 40 minutes until the Soyuz is within sight of the landing site. You'll also likely be hearing a beep, beep, beep that will come from a radio beacon on the Soyuz, which also provides targeted information through global positioning system hardware on board the Soyuz that relays data and telemetry and position information back to the flight control team in Korolyov.
Да. Музыка будет. Африканский.
Unintelligible.
Meanwhile, as The focus of attention is on the Soyuz spacecraft returning to Earth. The International Space Station flies smoothly on, moving from southwest to northeast, approaching the west coast of Africa with its 3 Expedition 44 crew members now in control under the command of Gennady Padalka, joined by the 2 one-year crew members, Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko.
Yes, we had about 3 minutes LOS. Everything is fine on board, nominal. Copy. Separation minus 6 minutes. 22 minutes. Get ready the system. Prepare the helmet. And have route.
We had launch music, now we have landing music.
Yeah.
Once again, as mentioned earlier in our broadcast this morning, there are 12 Russian Mi-8 helicopters that are flying from Zhezkazgan in south-central Kazakhstan, either 8 of them flying to the prime landing site, 4 of them dispatched. 12 Russian Mi-8 helicopters that are flying from Zhezkazgan in south-central Kazakhstan, either 8 of them flying to the prime landing site, 4 of them dispatched, fanned out in an area to the southwest of Zhezkazgan along what is called the ballistic landing zone that would be employed in the unlikely event the Soyuz now encounters a problem normally, with touchdown right on the button in the prime landing zone less than 37 minutes from now. Once the vehicle has touched down, search and recovery personnel of opening up the hatch to the Soyuz and extracting the crew members one by one, placing them in comfortable chairs near the vehicle so that they can have an opportunity to get their landing legs back. This landing, unlike most Soyuz homecomings, will be taking place not just after sunrise near the vehicle so that they can have an opportunity to get their landing legs back. This landing, unlike most Soyuz homecomings, will be taking place not just after sunrise, but rather just before sunset, with touchdown 1 hour and 34 minutes before sunset. Once the crew members have been acclimated to a gravity environment for the first time in 199 days, medical tent set up nearby the landing site itself. The crew members will have an opportunity to undergo initial medical exams, get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits, change for a 2-hour flight back to Karaganda. At that point, after a brief welcoming ceremony, Anton Shkaplerov will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft in Karaganda to fly back to his training Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft in Karaganda to fly back to his training base at Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft in Karaganda to fly back to his training base at Chkalovsky Airfield near Star City on the outskirts of Moscow, while Virts and Cristoforetti will board a NASA plane in Karaganda for the flight back to Houston. The conditions at the landing site continue to be favorable, with just scattered and broken clouds, temperatures in the mid-80s, on the brink of the start of summer in Kazakhstan. The three crew members left on board the International Space Station, Gennady Padalka, Scott Kelly, and Mikhail Kornienko, will remain a three-man crew for the next 6 weeks until the launch in late July of the next trio of crew members who will augment Expedition 44, now officially underway as of the time of undocking earlier this morning. Kelly, Padalka, and Kornienko will soon be joined by Russian cosmonaut Oleg Kononenko in the middle of your picture there. On his right, on the left side of your crew portrait there, is NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren, and on the right is Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Kamiya Yui. Those three will be launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in late July on the Soyuz TMA-15M spacecraft for a 4-orbit single-day launch-to-docking rendezvous profile that will have them arriving at the same Rassvet module that the Virts, Cristoforetti, and Shkaplerov crew departed from just a few hours ago. At the time of undocking earlier this morning, Expedition 44 formally got underway and will be the nomenclature for the expedition underway until early September, when Padalka returns home with a European Space Agency astronaut and a crew member yet to be determined that will fly to the station with Russian cosmonaut Sergei Volkov on a taxi flight to the station scheduled for launch on September 1st. Volkov will remain on board the International Space Station to be the Soyuz commander to bring home Kelly and Kornienko next March, while Padalka returns to Earth with ESA astronaut Andreas Mogensen of Denmark and that third crew member yet to be named, who will comprise the rest of that taxi crew.
Astray Mission Control Moscow.
Yeah. Астрей, ответить ЦУПу Москвы.
Astray
Большим перерывом.
Mission Control Moscow. We hear you intermittently with lots of static.
Astray, as called out by the Russian flight controllers, is Astra. That's the call sign of Soyuz TMA-15M, the call sign assigned to his spacecraft by Soyuz Commander Anton Shkaplerov, who is wrapping up almost a full year in space on this, his second flight, an aggregate total of 364 days in space on his 2 flights. Cristoforetti coming home today with 199 days in space under her belt. That is that eclipses the longest single spaceflight in history by a female. She surpassed the previous mark held by NASA astronaut Sunny Williams this past Sunday. Terry Virts will have logged 212 days in space at the time of landing just 30 minutes from now.
Режим готовности привели.
Space readiness, ISS automatics on and visors down. Is that correct? Astray, 3.5 minutes to separation. Monitor attitude via OSK. You're in sunlight now. At 2:14 before separation time.
На связи, Астрей.
Astray, we're here.
Again,
We're here.
again, intermittent communications with the Soyuz crew. We're about 3 minutes away from the pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz spacecraft. The crew inside the Soyuz commander in the center seat, flanked on his left by Cristoforetti, Terry Virts in the right seat of the descent module. The module separation will occur at an altitude followed just 2 minutes later by the Soyuz beginning to enter the Earth's atmosphere, at which point the crew members will feel the first tug of gravity on their bodies in 199 days.
Астрей, проконтролируйте программу разделения, запуск, признак управляемый.
99 days.
Астрей, проконтролируйте программу разделения, запуск, признак управляемый. Астрей, проконтролируйте программу разделения, запуск, признак управляемый.
Monitor separation,
Репортаж даже при
control
двусторонней связи.
descent, and keep reporting. Even if we don't reply, release push to talk button. And use push to talk button without retainer. 1 minute and 14 seconds. Monitor radars and programs.
Астрей, 30 секунд до разделения.
30 seconds to separation.
Десять секунд.
10 seconds.
Time to touchdown is about 25 minutes. Standing by for confirmation of module separation. And we've just received confirmation now of the separation of the modules right on time at 8:18 a.m. Central Time.
Observing separation.
So confirmation received at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov of a good separation of the three sections of the Soyuz. The descent module now flying on its own, ready to begin its entry into the Earth's atmosphere about 2 minutes from now. On the Soyuz TMA-15M spacecraft, there are thermal sensors that are activated to begin sensing the first traceable areas of the Earth's atmosphere, as the buildup of plasma will soon begin around the spacecraft, the heat shield repelling temperatures that will build up to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit around the Soyuz as it makes its way toward the landing site. Again, the Russian Mi-8 helicopters with the search and recovery forces are en route to the landing site. They will be arriving there shortly and will fly in a racetrack pattern around the zone of the Soyuz touchdown. All of the NASA and European Space Agency personnel in those helicopters en route to the landing site, about a 92-mile journey from Zhezkazgan to the landing site. They should be there soon to await the arrival of the Soyuz spacecraft, after which they'll descend for their own touchdown, respectively, in a sequential fashion to begin the process of recovering the crew, extracting them from the Soyuz descent module. Countdown clocks ticking backward toward the expected landing time, less than 22 minutes from now.
Well,
This is the period called the entry guidance phase of the entry back to Earth, in which the onboard computers on the Soyuz vehicle are feeding information, computational information, to target the Soyuz to the proper landing site. The crew is entering all other commands on board, and then we'll be in touch soon. Information to target the Soyuz to the proper landing site. The crew is entering all other commands on board, and then we'll be in touch soon with the fixed-wing Antonov aircraft that is hovering around the landing site to the southeast of Zhezkazgan. The loss of communications, intermittent communications with the crew, fully expected. This communications should improve before long, and both data, telemetry, and voice communications will be relayed through the Antonov fixed-wing flying. Telemetry and voice communications will be relayed through the Antonov fixed-wing flying command center aircraft in the vicinity of the landing zone back to the Russian flight control team in Korolyov. Craft in the vicinity of the landing zone back to the Russian flight control team in Korolyov.
Austria Mission Control Moscow, how do you read us? Austria, how do you read us?
Reports from the landing site in Kazakhstan indicate that at the landing zone they're flying in a circular pattern, an oval-shaped pattern, if you will, in the vicinity of the landing zone, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz spacecraft, with touchdown expected about 18.5 minutes from now. 8.5 minutes from now.
Unintelligible.
As the Soyuz and its 3 occupants emerge from the area of peak heating, exiting from the plasma region, descending toward the landing site, the G-loads on the crew will build up to about 4 to 5 times that of Earth's gravity at an altitude of about 38 kilometers. As you can see from the animation, we are standing by also for the command for the initiation of the opening of the parachutes about 3 minutes from now. That will first a drogue chute, then a main chute will be deployed to slow the Soyuz's descent rate considerably, allowing soft landing engines to fire just a second or two before touchdown at the landing site, which is again about 92 statute miles southeast of Zhezkazgan.
$351, 1627.12, $395. Astrid, we read you. How do you read us? Read you. Loud and clear. How's it going? I was going nominally. 14 marker is a little above the curve. What's the pressure? Plus 5 seconds. Plus 5. Miss 814 is in descent module pressure and feeling well 3.4 and now less, and the marker is straight ahead. Great, thank you. All is nominal. All is nominal.
And as you can hear in this communications with the crew on board the Soyuz were reestablished as they exited the plasma region, descending toward the landing site. Everything is operating normally on the Soyuz spacecraft so far. A perfect entry for the 3 crew members on the Soyuz. We're standing by for the command to deploy parachutes.
And decreasing. Have a soft landing. How discrete 0, 16 degrees low. Maximum load was 4.5. Once again, 4.10, 4.1, 4.1. Waiting for the chute to deploy.
The crew reporting maximum G loads of about 4 Gs on themselves. That is well within the normal parameters for a Soyuz entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. A radio beacon has also been activated on the Soyuz, that signal being picked up by the search and recovery forces at the landing site.
Inaudible. on the loop is unintelligible.
Everything continuing to go well as we stand by for confirmation of the chute deploy with touchdown expected less than 12.5 minutes from now. Time to touchdown now, 11.5 minutes for the Soyuz TMA-15M and its 3 occupants. All of the first video of the Soyuz under its main parachute. The parachute deploy occurred on time at 8:29 a.m. Central Time. Now the first video from the landing site showing the Soyuz descending under its parachute for a touchdown occurred on time at 8:29 a.m. Central Time. Now the first video from the landing site showing the Soyuz descending under its parachute for a touchdown less than 11 minutes from now. The search and recovery helicopters are arriving sequentially in a racetrack to recover the crew following touchdown. Everything has proceeded by the book so far. All of the Soyuz systems have operated to perfection. The 3 crew members in good shape on board, reporting mild G-forces as they entered during the plasma region of peak heating around the spacecraft at the landing site, showing the Soyuz descending under its main parachute. Touchdown scheduled 10 minutes from now.
Search and rescue, I am Astray 1. The search and rescue, I am Astray 1. The reading is dropping, is continuing to drop.
Also, within the last minute or so, the heat shield was jettisoned as planned after the parachute was commanded to deploy. This exposes the base of the Soyuz vehicle and its altimeters to provide information to the onboard computers regarding its altitude, rate of descent, and its range to touchdown. It also exposes the soft landing engines that will be fired just a few seconds before impact on the ground. Touchdown now less than 9 minutes from now.
Search and rescue, I'm Astray 1.
The journey for Anton Shkaplerov, Terry Virts, and Samantha Cristoforetti that began with their launch on November 24th from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan is just minutes from concluding. 199 days in space and aboard the International Space Station, 3,184 orbits of the Earth, 84.2 million miles traveled.
Search and rescue, MS-31. How copy? The rest is unintelligible.
That sound is the radio beacon that is also providing information and data on the location of the Soyuz to the search and recovery forces at the landing site. As you can see, blue skies, temperatures in the mid-80s, greeting the return home for Virts, Cristoforetti, and Shkaplerov. They'll be landing just 1 hour, 34 minutes before sunset. As you can see from this video from the landing site in south-central Kazakhstan, the descent of the Soyuz TMA-15M continues to proceed on track. No issues reported, a very stable descent for the Soyuz and its 3 crew members are returning home after a bonus month in orbit and 199 days in total. The parachutes were commanded to open at an altitude of about 6.5 miles. The 2 pilot parachutes were first deployed, the second of which extracted a drogue chute to begin the deceleration of the Soyuz's descent rate, about 6.5 miles. The 2 pilot parachutes were first deployed, the second of which extracted a drogue chute to begin the deceleration of the Soyuz's descent rate. That drogue chute was then released and the main parachute was deployed, and you see the Soyuz descending under that chute. With the crew on board the Soyuz, as well as receiving data and telemetry. Everything proceeding on track for a touchdown about 3 minutes from now. Once again, everything proceeding normally with the descent of the Soyuz and its 3 crew members on board in the descent 2 a.m. Central Time. The crew members said farewell to the remaining crew members on board the station, the Expedition 44 crew of Podolka, Kelly, and Kornienko. Hatches were closed. At that point, the undocking of the Soyuz from the Rosviet module occurred on time at 5:20 a.m. Central Time, followed by the deorbit burn at 7:51 a.m. Central Time to begin the journey home for the 3 crew members. And Rosviet module occurred on time at 5:20 a.m. Central Time, followed by the deorbit burn at 7:51 a.m. Central Time to begin the journey home for the 3 crew members. And comprising the search and recovery forces are on station, ready to begin the recovery of the crew once the Soyuz touches down. And you can see one of those helicopters flying in the foreground with the Soyuz behind it. Just a few clouds in the area. Conditions very good. Temperatures in the mid-80s. And there's the landing site. Touchdown seconds from now. And we have touchdown. You can see the reefing of the chute on the horizon. Touchdown at 8:44 a.m. Central Time, 7:44 p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan. The Expedition 43 crew, Terry Virts, Anton Shkaplerov, and Samantha Cristoforetti are back on Earth. Once again, touchdown occurring at 8:44 a.m. Central Time, 7:44 p.m. in Kazakhstan. The search and recovery helicopters now will begin to land in sequential fashion. You can see the helicopters now making their way, hovering around in a racetrack pattern around the spacecraft. The first order of business, the initial helicopter will be equipped with the personnel that will deploy the inflatable medical tent nearby that the crew members will be brought into after they're extracted from the spacecraft, and once they have an opportunity to be placed in comfortable chairs near their Soyuz vehicle for a quick acclimation back into Earth's gravity. It was a textbook homecoming so far for the Expedition 43 crew, and you see on the front board at the Mission Control Center in Korolyov at the Russian Flight Control Room the Cyrillic words Jest Posadka, the Russian words for they've landed. This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking at a view from a balcony camera of the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow. Just 3 minutes ago, parachute touching down on the steppe of Kazakhstan to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, following a flawless descent back to Earth after it undocked from the International Space Station at 5:20 a.m. Central Time this morning. The search and recovery forces will be making following a flawless descent back to Earth after it undocked from the International Space Station at 5:20 a.m. Central Time this morning. The search and recovery forces will be making their way now toward the spacecraft to begin the process of extracting the crew, and will be standing by for additional information and video from the landing site itself. To repeat our earlier information, once the crew members are extracted from the Soyuz descent module, they'll be placed in information. Once the crew members are extracted from the Soyuz descent module, they'll be placed in chairs. Earlier information, once the crew members are extracted from the Soyuz descent module, they'll be placed in chairs just outside of the hatchway of their vehicle. They'll have a few minutes to reacclimate to a gravity environment, after which they'll be carried into, they can have an opportunity to undergo initial medical tests, to doff their Sokol launch and entry suits, get into more comfortable flight clothing, and then they'll board individual helicopters of the landing site, at which point, following a short welcoming ceremony, Anton Shkaplerov will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for a flight back to Chkalovsky Airfield outside of Star City, Russia, on the outskirts of Moscow, while Terry Virts and Samantha Cristoforetti will board. Shkaplerov will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for a flight back to Chkalovsky Airfield outside of Star City, Russia, on the outskirts of Moscow, while Terry Virts and Samantha Cristoforetti will board a NASA plane in Karaganda to begin the journey home to Houston. We're still standing by for further reports from the landing site regarding particularly whether the Soyuz landed upright or on its side. In either event, the crew will be extracted from the vehicle shortly by the members of the search and recovery forces. On board the International Space Station, the new Expedition 44 crew of Commander Gennady Padalka and flight engineers Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko are soon to begin an extended sleep period and a light day of activity that is planned on Friday to begin a weekend before they press back into a normal complement of research activities. They will be a three-man crew for the next 6 weeks until the launch in late July of the three crew members who will join them as part of Expedition 44, that being Oleg Kononenko, NASA flight engineer Kjell Lindgren, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency flight engineer Kimiya Yui. As you can see, we have our video back from the landing site as you take a look through the shrub and the terrain of the barren steppe of Kazakhstan to the southeast of Zhezkazgan, where several members of the search and recovery forces are already on the ground beginning the preparatory activities to extract the crew from the descent module. And reports now from the landing site indicate that the descent module landed upright in a vertical position, so the crew will be extracted out of the top hatch of the Soyuz vehicle. Once again, the Soyuz TMA-15M landed upright, and that will help expedite the extraction of the crew by the search and recovery.
Ну, собственно, я закончу, когда их начнут выезжать палатку. Вот сейчас тетка договорит и пойдет соединение. Вот сейчас тетка договорит и пойдет соединение.
It's about an hour before sunset at the landing site, and you can see members of the Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Forces and RSC Energia, now Wirtz and Cristoforetti, awaiting their extraction that will occur out of the top of the descent module. They'll be helped down that short ladder there and helped into nearby.
Саша Калинин, камеру вижу, звука практически нету.
As you can see, a warm late afternoon, early evening on the steppe of Kazakhstan as RSC Energia and Rosaviatsa search and recovery personnel beginning the process of opening up the top hatch and extracting some initial equipment from the Soyuz descent module. This in advance of the process to extract the crew members one by one.
Стою, да, тормози. Спешимся. Смотри, ну нормально. Твою мать.
And there you see the Soyuz commander, Anton Shkaplerov, first out of the spacecraft that he commanded to his bullseye touchdown on the steppe of Kazakhstan. The search and recovery forces arrived on scene in their respective helicopters literally within minutes of the touchdown that occurred at 8:44 a.m. Central Time, 7:44 p.m. at the landing site. We are now just about an hour before sunset, a little bit over an hour before sunset. Shkaplerov completing his second flight into space with a big thumbs up as he has helped down the slide of that platform. He'll be placed in a comfortable chair nearby. Shkaplerov completing 300.
Ой, да. Спасибо. Я травматолог. Вот что-то беспокоит. Нет, все. Нет. Нет. Ой, да. Спасибо. Я травматолог. Вот что-то беспокоит. Нет, все. Нет. Нет. Данные. В спине боли нету, голова не кружится. Не тошнит. Чуть-чуть голова. Чуть-чуть. Тошнит. Здесь будет беспокоить. Не тошнит? Обязательно будет.
Вадим Степанов. Тут уже стоит родитель сядет. Да, давай. Да. Чтобы не оторвать. Я как будем готовы, я тебе сейчас скажу. Потому что мы сейчас чувствуем, что он говорит.
Once again, Once again, the Soyuz TMA-15M spacecraft, the descent module, with the Expedition 43 crew on board, touchdown right on time at 8:44 a.m. Central Time, 7:40 temperatures in the mid-80s. Landing upright, the slide platform erected very quickly around the capsule with the search and recovery forces that include NASA spacecraft. Now the crew, the other two crew members in the process of preparing to leave the spacecraft as well. The spacecraft as well.
Попробуй Антону дать трубку, попробуй.
Алло, замер проводим. Алло, Юрий Валентинович. Еще нет. Плохо слышно, докладываю, все сели, без проблем. Все живы, здоровы, рады.
Все, с командиром закончили. У нас тут идет тоже? Да, заканчивается.
Может соединяться и перегонять. Олег, если что-то не смог, будет долго искать, ну, собственно, все, у тебя все готово, тогда это сам. Да, и так все работает, все как помещается в одном канале, значит, нормально. Ну, я так думаю, что...
European Space Agency astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti, who spent more time on this first mission of hers than any other female on a single mission in history, 199 days, helped out of the Soyuz vehicle and now being placed in her chair next to Anton Shkaplerov.
Алло! Алло! Надо развернуть воду. Смотрите, мы же истребители глухие. Да, я же понимаю. Юра, нет, мы не глухие, мы тугоухие. Алло. Надо его развернуть вот так. Я говорю, можно с вами сфотографироваться? Что, по кабакам в нем ходил? Не, ни разу. Ни разу. Пульс давления. Пульс 129, оксигенация 96. Дима, как ты умудрился? Пешком?
Саманта Сергеевна, вива Литалия!
Shkaplerov and Cristoforetti out of the Soyuz descent module, now waiting for the extraction of Terry Virts. Once again, the crew will have an opportunity to spend a few minutes, and there is Virts popping out of the hatch. He'll be helped down the slide platform that's been erected above the top hatch of the Soyuz to join his crewmates. The three will spend a few minutes in those chairs under a setting sun before they're helped into the inflatable medical tent nearby to begin initial medical testing, to doff their Sokol launch and entry suits, and then board helicopters later on for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda to the northeast of the landing site. thumbs up and a smile from NASA astronaut Terry Virts, the Expedition 43 commander, having completed 212 days in space on his 2 flights. All 3 crew members out of the Soyuz vehicle just 25 minutes after their touchdown. An on-target touchdown at 8:44 a.m. Central Time, 7:44 p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan. Virts talking to a member of the search and recovery. Virts talking to a member of the search and recovery forces, gesturing to characterize how the Soyuz landed and facilitate the extraction of the crew. Crouched alongside Shkaplerov is cosmonaut Oleg Artemyev, who recently spent half a year on board the International Space Station himself. Crouched alongside Shkaplerov is cosmonaut Oleg Artemyev, who recently spent half a year on board the International Space Station himself.
Теперь я ухожу в твой клуб. Достаток вертикально. Принимать себе. Как техника сработала? Ребята вообще были в шоке, как все четко, по секундам все работало. Все, что расписано, шаг за шагом. Ничего не было нового, неизвестного. Это вот, да, еще. Антон, головой не крути. Шаг за шагом. Ничего не было нового, неизвестного. Это вот, да, еще. Антон, головой не крути. Уже родные. В следующий раз, наверное, всем дружим. Скажи пару слов. Ну что, поисковой службе, группы поиска и спасения. Огромное спасибо, что быстро нашли. Всем мира, всего самого лучшего. И дальнейшей работы совместно. Ребята. Отлично. Молодец. Оксигенацию поставьте. Значит, командир. Что, вы видишь по нему? Да. Оксигенацию поставьте. Значит, командир. Что, вы видишь по нему? Да. I made it. Hello? Hey.
This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to receive live television from the landing site of the Expedition 43 crew who landed at 8:44 a.m. Central Time. And on the phone with us from the landing site is NASA Public Affairs Officer Dan Hewitt, part of the search and recovery forces in south central Kazakhstan. Dan, paint the portrait for us. How is everything out there? And we just lost our connection with Dan Hewitt via satellite phone out at the landing site. We'll work to try to reestablish that. But as you can see, the three crew members out of the descent module, all appearing hale and hearty. Terry Virts on the left, Shkaplerov in the center, Samantha Cristoforetti on the right of your screen. As sunset approaches at the landing site, the NASA and European Space Agency personnel having joined the Russian search and recovery forces to help extract the crew. Their extraction occurring within 25 minutes of their touchdown in a very smooth and efficient fashion. The crew soon will be carried in their respective chairs inside an inflatable medical tent that has been erected nearby to begin the process of undergoing medical tests and doffing their launch and entry suits for more comfortable clothing prior to the time that they are placed inside three respective helicopters individually with their flight surgeons for the 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda. And we've reestablished our connection with NASA Public Affairs Officer Dan Hewitt at the landing site in Kazakhstan. Dan, how are things going out there?
Yeah, hey Rob, sorry about that. Looks like we had a bit of a drop connection, but I would say things are going pretty great. It's nice not to be shivering making this call to you today. I mean, weather's gorgeous. The crew's already out. They're all looking great. Couldn't ask for a better landing today.
So there's a variety of tests that will occur inside the medical tent before the crew is loaded on board their helicopters. Can you give us a rundown as to what lies ahead over the next couple of hours for the crew?
Yeah, so they're going to go into the tent and do all their baseline. All three crew members are actually also taking part in the pilot field study test that we've had running over the last several expeditions. These are going to be the last pilot studies. And these field tests have the crew members doing a lot of really basic things, standing up from a laying down position, walking straight line, things that sound pretty easy. The gravity can be a little bit difficult. So all three crew members are going to be doing that, hopefully inside the medical tent if we have enough time to get that done, because we watch it start sticking down on the horizon. But they'll be taking part in that, and then everyone's going to be loading up on the helicopters pretty soon, heading back to Karaganda. Weather around there is looking a little dicier than out here, but we should still be perfectly fine making our way back up.
And once back in Karaganda, Dan, what's the schedule for the crew before they part ways to head back to both Star City and Houston?
So, again, if we have the time for it, we'll do a nice little welcome ceremony where all the crew will get congratulated by some local officials, get a few gifts, and have to be loading up onto the NASA 992 plane, heading back to Houston. Anton Shkaplerov is going to be heading out on the GCTC, the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center plane, making his way back to home base in Star City, Russia. So it's going to mark an end to almost 200 days that they've spent the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center plane, making his way back to home base in Star City, Russia. So it's going to mark an end to almost 200 days that they've spent every day together, and they're going to say goodbye in just a few hours from now.
Okay, Dan, thanks very much for the Karaganda and back to Houston in your own right, and we appreciate all the support.
Absolutely, Rob. We'll see you in a couple of days.
NASA Public Affairs Officer Dan Hewitt at the landing site. As you can see, the sun setting at the landing site, as well as on Anton Shkaplerov and Samantha Cristoforetti. And now, as you can see, the crew members, one by one, being hoisted in their chairs for a short excursion into the inflatable medical tent, where they will be attended to, initial medical And as you heard from Dan Hewitt just a moment ago, the crew will board helicopters and fly back in darkness, actually, to the staging city of Karaganda. And as you heard from Dan Hewitt just a moment ago, the crew will board helicopters and fly back in darkness, actually, to the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, for a short while. In this view, heading back to the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City outside of Moscow, Virts and Cristoforetti will board a NASA plane in Karaganda for the flight back to Houston.
Нет, туда принеси. Eric, how are you? You look a little bit tired. I'm doing great. No, I feel really good. What do you want best of all now? A cold, something to drink. Some cold water would be nice. Welcome home. Thank you. Good. Thanks.
Terry Virts with a few words for reporters at the landing site, carried into the medical tent by Chief Astronaut Bob Bankin and Sean Fuller, the Director of Human Spaceflight Programs in Russia. They are joined as part of the NASA team at the landing site by Dan Hartman, who is the Deputy Program Manager for the International Space Station.
Вон там прямая, да.
And courtesy of the Russian Federal Space Agency, replays of the descent of the Soyuz TMA-15M spacecraft under its large main chute. This obviously shot from one of the search and recovery helicopters in proximity to the Soyuz spacecraft as it descended to its landing site to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. TMA-15M spacecraft that brought Terry Virts, Samantha Cristoforetti, and Anton Shkaplerov home to an on-time landing at 8:44 a.m. Central Time, just about 43 minutes ago. The crew was quickly extracted from the spacecraft, the descent module that landed Anton Shkaplerov home to an on-time landing at 8:44 a.m. Central Time, just about 43 minutes ago. The crew was quickly extracted from the spacecraft, the descent module that landed upright, and there you see the soft landing engines firing just a second or two before touchdown. Spectacular view from a video shot from one of the search and recovery helicopters. Hatch closure just after 2 a.m. Central Time this morning, where the departing crew, Virts, Cristoforetti, and Shkaplerov, bid a farewell to the new Expedition 44 crew station as a 3-man crew for the next 6 weeks until they are augmented back to a 6-man crew by the next trio to launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan in late July. A man crew by the next trio to launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan in late July, that being Oleg Kononenko, NASA's Kjell Lindgren, and Japanese astronaut Kimiya Yui. The undocking of the Soyuz, Japanese astronaut Kimiya Yui. The undocking of the Soyuz spacecraft from the Rosviet module of the International Space Station occurred on time at 5:20 a.m. Central Time. The Soyuz conducted a pair of separation burns for the engine firing, the braking maneuver, the deorbit burn that took place at 7:50 Space Station. For the engine firing, the braking maneuver, the deorbit burn that took place here, and as mentioned, landing occurring right on time and right on the money at 8:44 a.m. Central Time, 7:44 p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan. That was about an hour and 34 minutes before sunset, and you can see that the sun is beginning to descend for sunset on the horizon as the crew is now in the medical tent, all hale and hearty, and preparing for medical tests, to get out of their launch and entry suits, and to board helicopters for a nighttime ride back to the staging city in Karaganda. Meanwhile, there at the landing site, a good view of the descent module that brought home the 3 crew members, the Expedition 43 crew. There are technical experts, and meanwhile, there at the landing site, a good view of the descent module that brought home the 3 crew members, the Expedition 43 crew. There are technical experts and members of RSC Energia who are extracting some of the cargo from the spacecraft for immediate return back to Moscow. They're also inspecting. This is a replay of video that was shot just after touchdown. You can see the crew members still inside the spacecraft. This is prior to the time that they were extracted.
Платформу помогайте.
Сейчас еще две части несут. Конечно, да, там полукруга нет еще. Там есть люди, которые пустят? Да, конечно. Это ваши, да, понял? А кто несет? На платформу давайте, ёп! Гори, ёп! А, половину, что не срываю, вот эту кругу.
This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to watch a replay of some of the video that was recorded at the landing site for the Soyuz spacecraft and its 3 crew members. This just prior to the time that the crew was extracted from the descent module. They are now inside an inflatable medical tent nearby, beginning the process of undergoing medical tests and removing their launch and entry suits before they are to be boarded onto individual helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda.
Внимание, принесли платформу. Поднимайте. Внимание, принесли платформу. Поднимайте. Для этого мешать не буду. Вот это убрать, но мешать не буду. Давайте. А что, давай сюда поворачивай. Стоять! Поднимаем, разворачиваем сюда. Что за это? Еще чуть-чуть, сюда чуть-чуть. Еще чуть-чуть, сюда чуть-чуть. Поставили?
This has been the touchdown of the Soyuz spacecraft in Kazakhstan. This was the erection of the platform slide that enabled the 3 crew members to be extracted out of the top of the Soyuz vehicle so that they could be placed in chairs to begin their acclimation to a gravity.
Так, мы на люке, готовим люк к открытию. Минуту через 3 откроем. Да, командир. Минуту через 3 откроем. Да, командир. Вначале прикрутивай.
And back here at Mission Control in Houston, you were watching a replay of crew, NASA astronaut Terry Virts, who was the commander of Expedition 43, Soyuz Commander Anton Shkaplerov, and European Space Agency flight engineer Samantha Cristoforetti, home safely in good shape following a textbook touchdown on the steppe of Kazakhstan just an hour and 34 minutes. Soyuz Commander Anton Shkaplerov and European Space Agency flight engineer Samantha Cristoforetti, home safely in good shape following a textbook touchdown on the steppe of Kazakhstan just an hour and 34 minutes before sunset, with landing occurring just under an hour ago, upright on the steppe of Kazakhstan. They had a few minutes to acclimate themselves to a gravity environment. They have been brought into a nearby inflatable medical tent for medical exams and an opportunity to get out of their launch and entry suits into more comfortable clothing. They soon will board individual helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, to the northeast of the landing site, where they will split up. They'll part ways, with Shkaplerov climbing aboard a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for a flight back to Chkalovsky Airfield on the outskirts of Moscow at Star City, Russia, while Virts and Cristoforetti board a NASA jet for a flight back to Houston. This was by the book all the way through, from farewells and hatch closure in the wee hours this morning to the undocking of the Soyuz from the Rassvet module of the International Space Station, to an on-time and on-target touchdown for the Soyuz vehicle that brought home Virts, Cristoforetti, and Shkaplerov after 199 days in space. On board the International Space Station, Expedition 44 is underway under the command of veteran Russian cosmonaut Gennady Padalka, joined by the 2 one-year crew members, Scott Kelly of NASA and Mikhail Kornienko of the Russian Federal Space Agency. They will be joined by 3 additional crew members at the end of July. So that will wrap up our coverage for this morning. We invite you to stay tuned at the top of the hour for Space Station Live as we recap all of the activities that occurred throughout the course of the night and the early morning hours that brought home Virts, Cristoforetti, and Shkaplerov. They are safe and sound back on Earth after 199 days in space. For now, we'll conclude our coverage. Thank you for watching. This is Mission Control Houston.